Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the film American Ultra. American Ultra continues the genre of ordinary, regular Jesse Eisenberg suddenly having something crazy happen to him, whether it's going from a stoner to a Bourne Identity type secret agent that he didn't know about, whether it's having a bomb strapped to his chest, or whether it's a zombie outbreak suddenly occurring. This seems to be his kind of starring, wacky comedy vehicle, and after 4 years of not doing that and doing more serious roles and dramatic roles and growing as an actor and becoming a bigger name, he's for whatever reason decided to come back to that genre once again. And it's kind of a lackluster genre, and not a genre I particularly like, and not one I particularly like seeing him in, but he's back nonetheless. And this time without Ruben Fleischer, who directed those other two films, but I guess he's in director's jail because of Gangster Squad. These films really sell themselves on, like, isn't it wacky that this ordinary guy could be stuck in this crazy situation? It's playing into it even more than the previous two films did, because that's kind of the main thing with this film, is that he's just an ordinary stoner and then suddenly it's like he's the Bourne Identity or something, and that's, I guess, the whole twist to it. And in a way it feels like this twist has been done so many times that it's just a little boring at this point. It's not really that funny. I guess it's been gone for 4 years, and you kind of ask yourself, what is this twist for, except for another plot convenience to have another pleasant Jesse Eisenberg kind of quirky comedy. A stoner couple living in West Virginia. Jesse Eisenberg plays Mike, who works at a convenience store and lives at his house with his girlfriend Phoebe, played by Kristen Stewart, and he's about to propose to her and wants to go to Hawaii, but he keeps having panic attacks every time he tries to leave West Virginia and his small town, and they all have tickets to Hawaii, but they have to turn back because he has a panic attack and gets sick. But that alerts the CIA because he was a secretly trained assassin, and they would decide, since he's trying to leave the West Virginia town, that they need to take him out. But then Connie Britton decides that she doesn't want him taken out, so she goes and sets him off and like triggers his abilities once again, and he starts defending himself unconsciously and knowing all these things about guns and explosives and combat seemingly out of nowhere, as he tries to protect himself and his girlfriend from being eliminated by the government for being a secret weapon that they train themselves, as a kind of twist on the original Bourne Identity. The setup to all of these Jesse Eisenberg comedy vehicle type of things all kind of sound like they're parodies on a particular genre, and no more so than American Ultra. It really sounds like it's going to be a parody of the Bourne Identity, except with a stoner. And certainly that's the log line, and it's the best way to describe what the movie's about, but that's not really what the movie's about, and that's kind of been the problem with this whole weird semi-Jesse Eisenbergian genre or whatever, is that none of them are actual parodies. They're selling themselves on that, and they act like they're going to get into that, but they never really do. And that's another thing with this film, is it's like it kind of tries to do that at the beginning, but it gets so involved in so many different things, like has rom-com in there, it like brings in First Blood a little bit, it tries to be funny, it tries to be quirky and all these things. I would say it's a genre mashup, but mashup in the way like a huge 10-car pileup type situation happens. There's just too many things going on. It's like overly quirky and strange and different, and in a way I think that's kind of its detriment, because I like the idea of a quirky kind of send-up of the Bourne Identity. I think that's a good enough premise that could be really cool, and audiences could be into that, and I could be into that, frankly. I think it's a good idea. But this movie kind of has a lot of problems with just establishing the kind of basic core plot elements that they're selling in the TV ads. Anytime he's attacking someone, it's cut to shit like any other big action movie that you've seen before. Every terrible action sequence that's cut to ribbons is exactly every action sequence in this movie. The first confrontation he has with these guys, which is supposed to be really meaningful to the plot, because you're suddenly surprised, like this stoner draws comics and is patient, has panic attacks, can suddenly attack someone and kill them like in an action movie, but it's so cut up and obviously done with a stunt double, you never really believe it's Jesse Eisenberg, and because of that it's not really that impactful. I'm just sitting there like, oh, okay, this feels like Jesse Eisenberg just was there to like mug at the camera and like look like, oh my god, I can't believe I did that. But it's like, yeah, well, I can't believe you did that either, frankly. correctly. That's an important plot point. And I know I kind of bitch about that with action movies, is that when you actually see it, it means a lot more. And it's a lot more fun to see an action movie where you have a really great action sequence. There's a certain thrill to that. There's a certain part of filmmaking where you're like, I can't believe that just happened. And the element of American Ultra, which is really what it's selling itself on, is that the stoner is suddenly this secret agent and can do all this secret agent shit. And with that not working with the film doesn't have the core elements that it needs to have. And I think that's actually a major problem with it. There's a few times where it has a single tracking shot where it kind of looks like him, and you can tell like he might have actually semi-trained for that action sequence. But for the most part, it doesn't feel like it was him, and you can really tell. It's not just me being someone who watches too many movies, in particular action movies, and can kind of tell that sort of thing. It's just like that's important, and there's an actual distinction behind it, and that doesn't really help the film. And with all these different ideas going on at once and quirky characters, it's just a weird mixed bag. It's like getting a grab bag, but a grab bag full of stuff you don't exactly want, that kind of looks like stuff you might maybe want, sort of. I don't know. I think certain elements to it, like the cast, Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart have really great chemistry together. In fact, they almost get this film to work a lot better than it really should, and it has a way better cast than it should. You have people like Connie Britton, you have Tony Hale, you have Topher Grace, who I haven't seen in anything in a while, but I actually thought did a good job in this film. But really, Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, they're the couple who are really selling the film. He's trying to protect his girlfriend that he loves so much that he's going to propose to. That very much helps the movie, because that is one of the core elements of it, is that they really love each other and they have great chemistry together. You can see them hanging out. Their relationship makes sense to us as an audience. Jesse Eisenberg, I don't think this is a role that's really challenging for him. He really does pick interesting roles and does a lot of smaller films that he's very good in, and has grown a lot dramatically, and I think these kind of roles are kind of beneath him at this point. It does feel like he did a better job than like 30 Minutes or Less, which in this little weird subgenre that I guess I'm inventing, but I don't feel like I really am. This one, it feels like he's trying a lot more and putting a lot more thought into the acting of it, but it doesn't feel like it's really a challenging role. I like him a lot more when he tones it down and he does the dramatic roles. That's really when Jesse Eisenberg is best as an actor. And when he's doing these roles, his like kind of almost star vehicles, he's not as good. I don't think he's really a star vehicle type of guy. Not to say he's a bad actor. Some people aren't made to have star vehicles. He does kind of ham it up a little bit too much, frankly, in these kind of films, rather than something like Night Moves, which I really liked him in, or Social Network. Kristen Stewart isn't someone I've ever really liked that much. I don't really know that much about her career, but I liked her a lot in this, and her chemistry with Jesse Eisenberg, she works really well with him. If there's another film co-starring both of them, I would be interested in seeing it. I would like them to star in something a little more interesting than something like this, but she does a good job, and it shows like when she has someone who she can play off well, I feel like she works a lot better. She like kind of needs those other actors to work well with, and she becomes a better actress with association, really, which might explain why like she wasn't really that good in those Twilight movies, and why she's been so much better lately. This kind of reminds me of a quirky film earlier this decade, which was Youth and Revolt, and I liked Youth and Revolt because it was so quirky and strange you kind of couldn't believe it existed. It was just like this bizarre mix of a movie. And then when I look at American Ultra, it just feels like a mix of things that don't entirely come together to make something, and it feels like it's trying to say something with all this, but its end statement is like, you don't have to live this life that's assigned to you and stuff, which is like generic Hollywood bullshit. It feels like generic Hollywood bullshit mixed together and trying to act like it's different, but it's like not at all. Max Landis, who wrote this, I know a lot of people like him, and I like him on Twitter. Maybe he can say the studio, the director messed it up, but I don't think it shows the wit that we see from him online. This just felt like kind of a typical stranger Hollywood movie, but not one I particularly like. These Jesse Eisenberg kind of quirky takes on action movies are, I guess, interesting, but it just feels like yet another failed attempt at a genre that we maybe should kind of give up on. I don't mind Zombieland. It's not a movie I particularly love, and 30 Minutes or Less, I guess, had its moments, and this kind of has its moments in some cases, and it can be kind of funny sometimes, but I just feel like this is a genre that never quite gave us an answer and gave us a point to all this and gave me this definitive movie that's making me laugh on the couch and go, oh man, that guy's doing that thing that normally these other guys do. This is crazy. And maybe this one kind of got it a little more than something like Zombieland or 30 Minutes or Less, but it doesn't really get into it to the point where I really feel like it's a take on that genre. It's trying to do a little too much. It's like overcomplicating a really simple premise premise. And the reason you want to see this movie is, like, anytime I heard someone who was enthusiastic about this film, they're like, I like the Bourne movies, but this is like a funny take on it. If you're seeing it for that reason, you'll probably be disappointed. This is kind of a quirky take on things, but it's overly quirky in what it's trying to do in a real mainstream sense. Quirkiness is best for like smaller, stranger movies. It's, you know, a fine enough kind of wash of a late August kind of action film. I kind of like it for like the chemistry between Jesse Eisenberg and Kristen Stewart, and it's enjoyable enough, but it just reminds me of why I didn't like this kind of Jesse Eisenberg vehicle, and it doesn't make me want to see any more of those. It kind of just reminds me why I didn't really like Ruben Fleischer and that whole little Eisenbergian little genre in itself, and why I'm glad Jesse Eisenberg moved away from it. While I'm watching it, I kept thinking, why did he do this again? Why are we keep coming back to that? And this film doesn't really give me an answer at all. So if you have seen American Ultra and you would like to talk about it, then comment below in the comments and subscribe if you would like to. Oh, and check out an awesome animated sequence at the beginning of the credits. I actually thought that was probably my favorite part of the movie. It's a cool little animated sequence, and not enough live action films have animated sequences in them anymore, especially in terms of the credits. That used to be a thing, and this movie has one, and it's pretty cool. So if you can see that, or if you just see this movie's ending on HBO 2 or 3 years from now, then definitely check that out. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you next time.